All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our continuing education series, Joining Forces, Empowering Voices, a collaborative approach to supporting adults using high-tech AAC. My name is Erin Edwards. Through this series, you will find that we are passionate about building greater collaboration between BCBAs and SLPs. So all of our webinars will offer CEUs for both professions. We're also invested in improving services for adults with disabilities. So many of the examples and discussions in our presentation will focus on adults, but most of the interventions and techniques can be applied to children as well. And finally, we are enthusiastic about the potential of high-tech AAC. So our series will focus primarily on that type of communication. This CEU series is brought to you through the generosity of the Edith L. Trees Charitable Trust. We are very grateful for their support and this opportunity to bring you some amazing speakers. We hope this makes a difference in your practice as a professional and in turn makes a difference in the lives of the people who you support. Some important CEU information. The instructions will be in the Q&A. They'll also be on the website where you're doing the CEUs asynchronously. And if you've joined us before for CEUs, you can use the direct link as well from our website to get to the CEU. If you're new to our series, you'll need to create a profile and login and password, and then you'll be able to access all of the CEUs we have available. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Salena Babb, our speaker for today. We're very happy to have her. Salena's research focuses on improving academic and communication outcomes for individuals with developmental disabilities and communication disorders. Her research to date seeks to provide interventions to individuals with developmental disabilities that will support inclusion, employment skills, and literacy. Looking at best practices of implementation science, Salena is interested in research that addresses the training of staff members, such as teachers, paraprofessionals, speech-language pathologists, in implementing effective academic and behavior interventions in the public school setting. So we're very excited to have Salena join us today. And I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. And then we will get started. Everyone see my screen okay?
Yeah, it looks great.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited to be here with everyone. Super excited to be a part of this webinar series. I was just telling the team here that I'm really passionate about that topic. Adults with disabilities, high-tech AAC, it's my favorite population. It is often so overlooked. And I always tell people, we have a lot of time after high school. There's a lot of life left, a lot to do. So I'm excited for this presentation because we're going to hit a little bit on the proactive end. Oftentimes we're reactive. This individual is 30 years old and we have not been doing a lot for the last 9 years that they've been out of school. So we're going to talk today on my presentation titled Using VideoVSDs to Support Participation and Communication for Individuals with Minimal Verbal Speech. Most of our participants in this presentation are going to be upper high school getting ready to graduate. And I feel like this is really exciting because that's the goal, right? We want to change outcomes for adults with disabilities. We want to help them be more independent. We want to provide independent opportunities for communication. So just thinking about how we can do that while we have access to them in school to help build skills that are going to help them as they're adults is really exciting. So very thankful to be here. Just a little bit about me. I got my PhD from Penn State, got my BCBA, and I'll tell you what, I don't tell a lot of people this, not my professors, but when I passed that BCBA exam, that was way better feeling than whenever I passed my dissertation. I'll tell you that much. What an exam. So that was a highlight for me. Super thankful that I was able to complete that coursework while I was getting my PhD. Prior to returning to get my PhD, I worked as an autism support teacher, and I worked with high schoolers with significant autism who had no speech, would benefit from AAC, high behaviors, and that's really where I got this passion and of just how do we help support. I remember one parent telling me her son was going to graduate. And she said, it feels like the floor is just being ripped out from underneath us. And I feel like that is a really common theme that we hear from parents when we're looking at that adulthood in schools kind of ending. So that's when I've become really passionate about this time frame and this age of transition. I've worked as a consulting BCBA. I'm also passionate about augmentative and alternative communication. So it's fun to kind of be in both worlds when we're working with BCBAs and we're working with SLPs who maybe historically have never seen eye to eye or don't see eye to eye always. So it's really fun to be a part of this program that's helping to bridge the gap. My colleague, Jessica Karen, is an SLP, and we work together all the time, and we're in schools and they look at her and they say, oh, well, she doesn't get it because she's not a teacher. And we say, whoa, because we got the teacher over here. And then they look at me and they say, oh, well, she doesn't get it. She's a BCBA. And then she says, look over here. We got the SLP. So it's really fun to just see how we can collaborate when we know that that's best practice for the individuals that we work with. And we know that there are so many strengths in both of our fields to support these individuals. So I'm just thankful to be a part of this again, where I'm all about that collaborative approach. We have such strengths in our domains, and to be able to bring those strengths together, again, being student focused, client focused, is what's important. I worked as a professor at Penn State, worked as a professor at another smaller college in Pennsylvania, and now I work as a research coordinator here at Penn State. Excited to be with you all. Quick disclosures for my presentation. And now a brief agenda. We're going to spend some time going over challenges of employment and kind of life in adulthood for individuals with disabilities and limited speech. We're going to walk through 3 research studies using VideoVSDs. And the goal there, just so that you can kind of be thinking this way, is to really walk you through the process, one, of how this research was developed and the theoretic rationale behind it, and also how it can be used and applied, hopefully, to clients or individuals that you're working with or would benefit from this. We'll end with some conclusion, questions, and next steps. Some objectives would be to define video visual scene displays and describe at least 3 key components, evaluate the effectiveness of video VSDs to enhance participation in vocational settings, and identify at least 2 clinical implications and 2 future directions. Let's dive in. So let's look at our image here. This is Jeff. Jeff has a part-time job at Dairy Queen, and here we see him getting money out of the ATM. Jeff has Down syndrome and uses speech to communicate. However, not everyone is able to understand him the way he would like them to. Because of this, there are limitations in the tasks that he can do at work, challenges with him being able to ask questions about his job from his coworkers, or to simply socialize with people at work and customers. This also carries over as he participates in the community. And I think we all know individuals like this who have a lot of verbal speech, but might be highly unintelligible, especially to unfamiliar communication partners. And so when we're thinking what Jeff needs to be successful at work, he needs some kind of support to help him participate, learn new tasks, and be independent. But he also needs support for his communication. So we have these dual needs of how independent participation and support for participation for adults with disabilities who have limited verbal speech. I'm going to quickly go over some terminology that I'm going to be using throughout this presentation. First, we have video VSDs, so I'll just read quickly, but we will dive into this much deeper. Videos that capture dynamic life events that can be paused at key junctures in the event to create a VSD with programmed hotspots or regular relevant vocabulary concepts. Next, we have a task analysis. And you're all very lucky that you're on Zoom, and I'm not presenting this to students right now because I make this presentation usually lots of participation. What's a task analysis? Describe it. So a task analysis is the process of breaking down a skill into smaller or more manageable components or steps. So my BCBAs out there should be very familiar with task analysis, but essentially it's you're taking a task. Let's take brushing our teeth. That is a huge, long task with multiple steps. Now we're going to break down that task into each individual component steps. And this is always a fun one because everyone sort of does things in different orders. So, okay, let's think about brushing our teeth. First step in the task analysis, get toothbrush and toothpaste. Step 2, unscrew the lid to the toothpaste. Step 3, put the toothpaste on the toothbrush. But wait, now how many of you rinse your toothbrush first, then put the toothpaste, or do you put the toothpaste on, then you rinse it? Anyway, so task analysis is breaking down each and every single step within that task. When we're thinking about working with individuals with cognitive impairments, oftentimes we need to break down skills. And I think a large part in our field of why we don't see independence is that we don't often break down those component steps and take the time to do that in the beginning, and then things sort of get lost. So again, task analysis, taking a larger step and breaking it down. Video prompting. Video prompting is a form of video modeling in which a chain task is broken down into individual steps. So video prompting is the video version of a task analysis. So video prompting is found to be very effective for teaching individuals with disabilities new skills. We used to use a lot of video modeling, and that is still used. Video modeling would be a video of all the steps, the complete task of brushing the teeth. With video prompting, they're going to watch a video clip of the first step, the video pauses, and then that is a natural cue to complete that step. The individual presses play, they watch the next clip in the video. So video prompting is just breaking down the component steps of the task analysis in video form. And again, we have lots of research to support the effectiveness of video modeling and video prompting for individuals with disabilities. So let's dive right into it. A little bit about the background and why sort of employment and meaningful activities are so important to our life. So thinking about employment, it adds to our quality of life, gives us purpose, leads to well-being, a reason to get up in the morning. I hope many of you are here and watching this webinar because you have a job doing something that you love. I feel grateful every single day that when I was a high school student, I said, wow, I love working with individuals with disabilities when I volunteered at our local elementary school. I'm so thankful that every single day I'm helping to train people and working with that and working with the population that I love so dearly. Hopefully you feel like you're good at what you do. Hopefully you're here in this webinar because you want to learn and grow. Maybe your district or your job site made you, whatever it is. Employment is important because it gives us purpose. There is so much research to show that having meaningful activities in our life, something that we are good at, skills that we can complete, it makes us feel more confident. It increases our self-esteem. It makes us feel better. Oftentimes when I look at this, adults with disabilities, we seem to think that doesn't apply to them, and that they also don't need meaningful activities and meaningful employment into adulthood. But the fact is that that's not true. And we need to be doing everything that we can to help support their independent participation so that they too can have those meaningful activities as adults. So think about what general skills do you need to do your job. You need skills to complete the tasks. And you also need a lot of social skills to communicate with others at work. I will just say that I think those are often the hardest for some of us. Yeah, I just told the team, I'm kind of hidden in my little lab at Penn State now. And I don't deal with a lot of people. I just get to do my own thing. I'm very productive. It can be difficult to deal with people. There's a lot of communication. And I think oftentimes we focus on the tasks that need done. And we forget that when we're working in employment, when we're working in a public site, there's a lot of communication and a lot of interaction that also takes place. Communication skills are also skills that are identified as critically important to employers. And they've actually done a research study. It's a little outdated now, but I'm sure it still holds true, that employees actually seek out individuals who can communicate. And when they interviewed employers who were going to hire individuals with disabilities, they said, okay, what's more important to you, productivity or social skills? What do you think they said? Social skills. They said actually even above productivity, we would like whenever the individual is able to have some independent social skills above that productivity. So I feel like that's just important for us to think about when we're thinking about the population that we're working with, that we're working with twofold. If you're working with adults who also have minimal verbal speech or highly unintelligible speech that doesn't meet all of their daily needs, and we're thinking, how can we help them be independent into adulthood? Communication is something also that we need to take into consideration. So that's a problem, right? We know that employment is important, but we've, oh gosh, oh, I must blow it up here. I just had a little bit. So anyway, we know that communication is important, but unfortunately for individuals with significant disabilities, particularly those with limited speech, less than 5% are employed. So we just spent time talking about how employment is so important, how it adds to our quality of life, but we've really poor outcomes, less than 5%. And this is across diagnoses. If you have minimal verbal speech, if you have unintelligible speech, less than 5% of that population is employed. When compared to other disabilities, individuals with more significant disabilities, particularly in the area of communication, are the least likely to be employed. Many individuals with minimal verbal speech and who are limited in their communication have lack of experience in vocational, independent living, and community activities, particularly independent participation. Just some stats here, information for individuals with autism, the same goes with them. They have stats that say approximately 25 to 50% of individuals with autism are employed, but many of those individuals are used as describing speech, as having speech to communicate. They would be described what formerly known as high functioning autism or level 1 autism. But we also know that a high majority of the individuals with autism, close to 45%, do not make use of speech to communicate and are described as having minimal verbal speech, and speech does not make all of their daily needs. So we have these, intrinsic barriers, lack of, lack of the ability to speech, lack of experiences. But we also have extrinsic barriers when thinking about poor work preparation and opportunities during the school years. I have the opportunity now where I'm in classrooms K through 12, so I get to see the whole thing. I can remember being young whenever I first started out and working in a middle school classroom and thinking, what the heck did they do with these kids in elementary school? If I would have had these kids, I would have had them been doing this. Luckily, I had a job where I was in all of those rooms and I was able to see what happened in elementary school. They were climbing the walls. They were on the table, so at least when they got to me, they were sitting in a chair. But it's important to think about the lifespan, right? Oftentimes we get a little bit siloed and we don't think with the future in mind. And it is so important when we're talking about adults with disabilities that we are thinking long game. When we're thinking about individuals with disabilities, we're thinking long term and how can we set them up for success for the long term. So we often have poor work preparation and opportunities during the school years. Many of these individuals who have minimal speech have lack of communication supports, whether it's low-tech, augmentative and alternative communication, picture boards, PEC systems, high-tech AAC. Oftentimes it's not used, particularly for those individuals with some verbal speech. And maybe this has already been talked about from the from the SLP world in this webinar series, but we have so much research to show that any form of communication support does not hinder verbal speech. It only increases it. And you will actually see some of that in the presentation today. So we see lack of communication supports. When they have a way to communicate, we're not having those good communication turns back and forth, and that can be a barrier. Lack of ability to be independent, experiences at work. We also have limited research to guide interventions in order to maximize the participation of individuals with limited speech in real-world contexts. So just thinking about this webinar series and the need in our field, we need research and technology to support communication and independent participation for this population. Let's talk a little bit about participation supports. So what do we do? How do we combat these barriers? And provide potential solutions. One way is with video models. We talked a little bit about video prompting. What I love about video models is that these are not stigmatizing. We use them all the time. You can find a video model to do anything. One way you can look to support the learning of new skill is to watch a video model. Now, remember what we said on the previous slide. We know that video modeling or video prompting is effective for teaching individuals with disabilities to complete new tasks. But the question here is, how do we integrate communication? Think back to our example of Jeff. He's working at Dairy Queen. He needs participation supports, and he also needs communication supports. So we're thinking about, for individuals with disabilities who also need that communication piece, how do we integrate technology that supports participation and communication? Let's talk about some current AAC technologies. Video modeling is a way, and video prompting is a way that we support the participation, but how can we also support the communication? We have traditional AAC grids that you see here for riding the bus. These displays depict language concepts outside of meaningful communication concepts. So we see icons here for riding the bus token, time, waiting at the bus, stop, all the images that you might need to communicate or kind of understand what's happening at the bus stop. On the next slide, we see an image of a visual scene display. Visual scene displays capture meaningful events within an individual's life in a scene. You're able to embed language concepts as hotspots within the scene, and this really reduces cognitive and linguistic demands. So we have seen a lot of success with VSDs, especially for individuals, beginning communicators, individuals with limited verbal speech, individuals who have had limited sort of real world experiences. And I think we can kind of see why. Just like it says, we reduce the cognitive and linguistic demands. So the VSD, the image that you see here would be an actual image of the individual riding a bus. It's their bus. It's them in the image. They see their bus driver. And when they activate the hotspot, it might be saying, bye, like, see you on Monday. So it really maps that communication into the situation. Whereas with the traditional grid display, it's outside of that context and can make it meaningful to map the communication to the activity. Let's get to our potential solution of how we can help combat this problem for adults with disabilities who have minimal verbal speech and would benefit from a high-tech AAC. So one potential solution is videos with VSDs. So really capitalizing on evidence that we know video prompting interventions support the learning of new skills for individuals with disabilities. So we have lots of research on video prompting. We know that that helps support independence and quick independence in learning of new skills. We also know that visual scene displays provide that contextual support for communication within real world contexts. And I feel like this is a really important key when we're thinking about being out in the community, out, in different situations. We're not at school, we're not at home. We're out in the community, we're completing life skills, we're at job sites. So thinking about what supports are needed in those real world contexts. So our idea is to combine the two. We use video visual scene displays. We'll be able to capture dynamic routines that support communication in real world vocational and community settings. So we've seen success with visual scene displays. We've seen success with video model prompting, and now we want to see what video visual scene displays will be able to do in order to help support individuals to communicate and participate within tasks. So I'm going to start with my first study here, calling it study 1. I want to introduce you to Lena, and we are going to break down what it looks like to use video VSDs in a pre-employment activity. Lena is 16 years old with autism. She is able to use speech to communicate in some circumstances. However, it did not meet all of her daily needs. Her expressive communication was characterized by the use of ritualized phrases, delayed echolalia, and scripting. She was described to our research team as highly prompt dependent on verbal and gestural prompts to complete vocational and community tasks and fulfill communication opportunities. Our research question was, what is the effect of video visual scene displays on a tablet-based app on the participation in 3 real-world contexts? And our first study was a pilot study with this technology at Penn State. It was an A/B design with baseline and intervention. And Lena was working on 3 tasks to build independence. So she's 16 years old. Her school's working on her transition plan. She was working on using public transportation, riding the Cata bus here in State College. She was working in a school office. This was over her summer program. She was working in a school office shredding paper. And she was working at an offsite office at the local district's print shop. So what we did for Lena is we looked at these 3 tasks and we created task analysis for each task. They were used to identify the steps to complete the steps, all the tasks. And we also looked for opportunities for communication. So let's just keep in mind that our goals with this research is twofold. We want to support participation and we want to support communication. So if I'm thinking about how I can design a study for an individual who's not only working on independent participation, but I also want to say, okay, we've got to find some ways that work on this communication as well. We know that's important for employers. We know that it's needed at job sites. Whenever I create these task analysis, make these task analysis, I'm also going to be looking for ways to support communication. In baseline, Lena was working on these activities. We took data as what typically occurred, and that would be independent participation. So we took data on what she was able to complete independent without the need for any verbal or physical prompting. The intervention, we recorded videos with the VSD app, and I'm going to show many examples of this. And we provided instruction and navigation used to the app, least to most prompting in the app. And our dependent variable was the % of steps completed and communication opportunities fulfilled independently without prompting. This is Lena's task analysis for working in the school office. So it's part of her task analysis. We see 6 steps here. In bold are the communication opportunities. I'm not sure how clear that's showing up on your screen. So number 1, leave the classroom and say goodbye. 2, walk to the room 111. Enter the room and greet staff, walk to the shredding area, put paper in the shredder, enter the shredder as needed. So here in these 6 steps, we see 2 opportunities for Lena to work on communication. We're going to show some clips of this, but we're first going to start with the video prompting example. You see in the image here, this is an example of what the screen looks like. She's going to watch the video until a pause. So what happens is, just like we talked about with video prompting in the beginning, where we see the step, Lena's going to see the step in the task analysis, the video is going to pause, and that's a natural cue to complete the step. What I love about this technology is that the pause provides a natural cue. It's a natural cue to the person of something happened, now what do I do? And I love that because, again, you know, one of my favorite professors in undergrad said, our job as special educators is to work ourselves out of a job, right? Our goal is to get them back on track, you know, on grade level, help them be independent so that they don't need us hovering over them anymore. So one thing I love about this is that natural cue really helps to even, you know, help us take a step back. Did my slides just get messed up? There we go. Then we have video prompting plus the communication supports. You watch the video until a pause is the natural cue to perform a step for a participation step. If a hotspot appears, that's going to cue the communication opportunity. So hotspots can be added then to support the communication. Okay. So we are going to watch a quick clip, and this is going to be a point of view example of what Lena will see. So you see Lena's on the screen there. This is going to be point of view, and it's going to show you the first step, leave the classroom and say goodbye, of what Lena would see on her device. So just a short clip there, but you see Lena walking out of her classroom, and literally the video model is exactly what she's going to do. We saw the hotspot appear. She could activate it, supports her communication, say goodbye to her peers, then she finishes leaving the room. Okay. We are going to watch step 2 here, which is walking to room 111. Again, you're going to see point of view, no communication opportunities here, so we will not see a hotspot. So that was her walking to room 111. And again, we're videoing exactly what would happen. If you work with any individuals who are highly prompt dependent, you'll know sometimes it doesn't matter if they go to the same place every day. They're still going to kind of stand there and queue for that prompt. So literally, it's showing exactly what she's going to do. And our last short clip here is of step 3 in the task analysis. Point of view, just so you guys can see what Lena's going to see, of enter the room and greet staff. That is what that looks like.
Hey, Salena.
Yeah.
The audio is not great. Is the hotspot saying like hello, or is the hotspot saying, telling her to say hello? Like, is it an instruction or is it the actual communication?
Oh, darn. I'm sorry you can't hear it well. It is exactly what she is going to say. So when she hits the hotspot, for example, in that video, it said, "Hi, I'm here to do some shredding." And what this really does for individuals who have some speech, it's going to serve as an exact model for them. So they're going to be able to maybe replicate that and say, "Hi, the same thing. I'm here to do some shredding." Or maybe they're able to do an approximation. Maybe they're able to get the last word. So it's saying exactly what she's saying. And that's a great point, Dawn. Another thing that's really cool is when we think about the communication partner. You know, she's walking into the shredding office. The main people might know. What if there's a sub in there? What if somebody else is in there one day? So even if she's only able to, you know, get an approximation of it, it also helps the communication partner understand the message that's trying to be delivered. Yeah, so the hotspots are exactly what they're going to say. So for the first step, leave the classroom and say goodbye. The hotspot said, "Bye, everybody." And then Lena would be able to repeat that. So hopefully we're going to watch a video of her do that, and hopefully you'll be able to hear her more clearly. But thank you, Dawn. I'll try to do that for the rest of them too. So we just watched some point of view models of Lena, what she would see. Now you're going to see her utilizing the technology, activating the hotspots, and completing steps 1 through 3.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone. There you go. Nice job. Wonderful. Thank you.
So it might have been a little bit difficult for you to hear there, but she was a really good example where she said like, hi, bye everybody to her peers. And then she was able to get out most of the message of, hi, I'm here to do some shredding when she activated the hotspot. And Lena is a great example of, she has some speech, but I mean, you could spend 2 weeks with her and not hear her say a word other than some scripted phrases. So it's just really cool to see her be independent here. And I don't have a great pre-video of her, but hopefully from this video, you can see just, she's actively engaged. And I would say for this individual, that was something that we really struggled with. So to see her really attending to the technology, watching it, navigating it, just kind of doing it all on her own was really amazing and really awesome for her school team, for an individual who's just very historically prompt dependent and very passive and not engaged. So super exciting. So that's a little bit of what that looks like. This was her data in the beginning. We only have 2 baseline probes, but then we saw an immediate jump when she had access to the technology. And again, this is independent participation. So it's not that, before this, she was doing it in baseline, just heavily reliant on verbal and physical prompting. So just to see how quickly she was able to become independent with the technology and enjoy it was really cool. So that was just a video of her for one task. I will say there's a reason I'm not showing you the videos of her that we have on the Catabus, okay? We got them, but it was quite the scene and took some time. We had some people yelling at us and everything, but super proud of her. And that was the first study that we did with this technology. So for study 2, we really wanted to say, okay, we did a pilot study with this technology. It was awesome. We saw incredible results. Now let's sort of up the ante and try it again with another student. So I'm going to introduce you to James, an 18-year-old with autism. He was in high school. James is described as having no functional speech. He did not use any form of AAC. He had no way to communicate. It was described that he used some AAC whenever he was younger and never really picked up. James had a few signs. They were mostly a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and he was very agreeable. So everything was pretty much thumbs up, unless it was like, do you want broccoli for lunch? Big thumbs down. He was also described as being very prompt dependent, and really, we're kind of brought in working with the school, again, thinking about how we can help James. He's 18, almost 19 years old, going to be aging out of the school system soon. How can we help build some skills for James? In Pennsylvania, they can go to school until they're 21. And conversation with James's family was they weren't sure if they were going to keep him in high school. And so the team was really scrambling of how can we help support him? How can we get him some work opportunities? This is at a rural school district who did not have many resources. Some school districts are where you might work. They might have job coaches. They might have transportation to job sites. That was not something that this school had. So we began to get a little creative. If you're thinking about this with your population, it's not always possible, but it's great whenever you can bring in some motivating interests or things that they've enjoyed. So when we started thinking about a transition plan for this individual, we were thinking about, what things does he like to do? Are there things before that he's been successful in? Are there things that we can build upon previous existing skills? The school team's goal was to decrease verbal and physical prompts, help the student acquire skills more quickly, and also provide opportunities for communication and help him communicate. So when we talked to them, there was actually a local elementary school within walking distance that they reported that he really enjoyed spending time in. It was his favorite place when he was in elementary school. And so we thought, that is a place that has a lot going on. Let's create some jobs and skills for him to do there. So James completed 3 tasks. He worked on checking in books, putting away and sorting books, and making die cuts in the library. Our research question was, what is the effect of the VideoVSD application on the number of steps completed and communication opportunities fulfilled during vocational activities for an adolescent with autism and no verbal speech? We had a multiple baseline design across 3 behaviors, so 1 participant completing in 3 different activities. Our independent variable was the VideoVSD application, instruction in the app, navigational steps. I will just take a second to say, if you're thinking about using this technology with clients that you work with, it quickly becomes intuitive, but it's not always intuitive that I watch it and then I do it. And so I would say that the instruction that took place was that, they kind of watch it and then look at us. And we're like, yeah, now do it, and then they begin to really respond to that natural cue. And I will just say, this is a hiccup that I see sometimes when I'm seeing people implement it. I'm like, yeah, they need a little bit of instruction. So we would use least to most prompting, the gradual release model for those SLPs, to teach that, I watch it and then I do it. And oftentimes that looked at, it was either a gesture for them to activate, press play on the iPad, and then they would kind of look at us and then we would gesture to the activity. And what's really cool is I don't have like the data specifically, but it did not take much instruction. It did not take much least to most prompting. It is very intuitive, but there is sometimes a little bit of instruction that's needed of learning that I watch it, the expectation, I watch it and then I do it. The dependent variable was the percent of steps and communication opportunities fulfilled in the task analysis independently. And we had baseline, intervention, and maintenance. This is a little bit about the procedures in the study. Research is always a little interesting. What we did here is we would say, all right, it's time to pack the backpack. So if any of you have been in a local elementary school library, it's time to put the books away. If any of you have been in a local elementary school library, it's a very busy place. We have testing going on, small groups, this, that, like it is insane now. So when we were there, that was a natural thing of like, okay, now we have time to do this. Now you can check in books. Now you can put books away. So we'd provide initial cue and then give wait time. If after 5 seconds, the student, James, did not complete the first step in the task analysis or was completing it incorrectly, the researcher, myself, would step in and complete that step and then say, okay, what's next? And part of this was to provide opportunity for him to complete every step in the task analysis to see, maybe he can't do the communication steps, but maybe he can do all of the participation steps. Maybe he already knows what to do here. The other thing was that whether he could put the books away or check in the books or not, that had to get done at the library. So that's just a little example of what you'll see in the video. Like I'll kind of interject myself and then say, okay, what's next? And I'm giving him an opportunity. And this is just good when you're thinking about important data for just that pre-baseline data before you get an intervention or before you're beginning an intervention to see how quickly it's working, of really giving them an opportunity at each step. Yes, Jonathan.
I didn't want to interrupt. This is so cool.
No, it's great.
For the VSD app and instruction, during the instructional portion, did you sort of prompt through the total task, or did you start with the first task and then each session you added a task, or maybe sort of a backwards chaining approach? I'm just wondering what that looked like.
Yeah, excellent. So the first thing that we did was we just did a navigation of using the app. So just kind of sat with them and just kind of click through, showed the hotspot, what kind of happens generally. Then it was using the app in the sequence with least to most prompting. And I started with 1 skill at a time. And what was really cool about this is that, or just even thinking about how, and we started with the whole skill. And it really was just learning that of I watch it and then I do it. And I will say, like with Lena, you saw her as the video model. For James, I was the one completing the task. There is a lot of research done on that. And they've basically said it doesn't matter. So individuals might prefer to see a similar person as themselves as the video model, but regardless, they still learn. So don't let that hold you up. So it just looked at a quick navigational of this is how you use the app, this is how you press play, this is how you activate the hotspot, and then in the moment. Now I will say the videos in that he watched, It wasn't anything like we just did it with our little camera. You can do it with a cell phone. But like for the communication opportunities, that was like they had to orient themselves to the person. It wasn't just somebody hitting a hot spot there. So there was a little detail there, which again, I'll kind of talk about in the video.
One quick follow-up. When you did the instruction related to navigation, did you do that navigation instruction for each skill, or you pretty much did it once and then sort of we're assuming that it would generalize?
Yep, just had to do that one time of this is the app. And then whenever the technology was introduced to the subsequent skills, they knew how to navigate it and use it. And what's really cool, like you'll see with James, there was no bleed because it's like he didn't have it or he did in baseline for the skills. But we saw faster acquisition because he knew sooner of what he was supposed to do. So it's like, by the third task, there was not much least to most prompting of, what I watch it and then I do it because he's already learned the skill of how I follow the video prompting. Great question. Baseline, like we said, they don't have access to the tablet or the VideoVSD app, and they have that in intervention. So this is the task analysis for putting books away for James. There were 11 steps, and 4 of those, which are kind of bolded in orange there, are the communication steps. So again, this was not by chance. We built in opportunities for communication. So when I created this task analysis, when I'm thinking about jobs for him, that is a goal of mine. He has had, very minimal opportunities to communicate to this point, goes his whole day without any sort of communication, reciprocal communication back and forth. So I'm working on that. So if you're working with individuals and you have the dual goal for participation and communication, we want them using their device more. We want to integrate the device. There are ways that you can do that into your task analysis. So one thing, like we said, the library is a happen in place, asking the librarian, is now a good time for me to put the books away? Now James is going to go through his steps. He's sorting the books. Can you check my work? Some of this, it's just so funny because this librarian was so serious about that. Like we really had to check his work, like where those books go is important. Saying I'm going to put the books on the shelf, and then at the end, I'm finished completing the task. So in just 11, task steps, James has the opportunity to work on 4 skills. And I will just say, for the most part, we were pretty confident that he had the skills and the ability to complete the steps in terms of mobility, fine gross motor skills. He just was incredibly prompt dependent. And most of the staff in the school had a very, very low bar for him. And quite honestly, that was because he was unable to verbally produce speech. It was often assumed that because he couldn't talk, he would not be able to participate. So this was also just something that we were working with in this school, but I also think it's a common thing that we see often in our community and even with, professionals in our field, that when individuals aren't able to speak or don't have the correct communication supports in place, we assume that that also means inability to complete other tasks. So this is his score in baseline. He averaged 5% over 6 baseline sessions. And now we're going to watch a short clip of him in baseline. So just sort of remembering that I'm going to say it's time to put the books away, give some wait time. And if he doesn't complete the step, I'm going to complete it and then say, what's next?
Right, it's time to put the books away. What's next?
So just a short clip there, but a lot of what we're seeing is like, he knows he's supposed to do something with that box. I'm saying it's time to put the books away. He knows he's supposed to do something there. He's just reluctant to initiate. We see this a lot with individuals with autism. They're waiting for the prompt. They have been conditioned to wait for the prompt. So he knows that he needs to do something. He knows he has to do something with the box, but he's not sure. Similar profile to Lena, I would describe James as very passive. When we would be down in the library, he would find the rocking, the swivel chair or whatever, and just be happy as can be sitting there. I'm like, get up, come on, we got to do some work, because that's what he was used to in most of his days. So here's a short clip of us
It's time to put the books away.
intervention. Let me get there. Sorry. First, this is his graph. So we saw an immediate jump, an immediate change in level, an immediate jump up. This was the second task in his sequence. And, you know, some of that is for what we said before. He was able to motorically, fine motor, gross skills, complete all of those steps. Just prior to the technology, he was not able to do it independently. So again, these are independent participation, and he averaged 90% over 3 sessions very quickly. Here is a short clip of him in intervention when he has access to the tablet. So as you watch this, think about what differences are you seeing?
It's time to put away the books. Absolutely. Go ahead and put away the books.
I'm just going to pause that really quick. A lot of individuals that we work with autism, you know, we've known they might not like close proximity. They do not like to make eye contact. It's really subtle in that video, but it was really big for James that he kind of went down to the books. Then he came up a little closer to me and activated the hotspot. And that was something that was in the video and also took time to teach with the least to most prompting hierarchy of that. You can't just hit the hotspot and be facing the window or be across the room. That is not a communication opportunity fulfilled, that you have got to be in proximity to the communication partner in order for that to be reciprocal communication. Your message needs to be received. So that was really minor there, but that was something that was really cool too. When we're just thinking about integrating communication into this participation, that we found success with kind of teaching that successful communication opportunities.
Absolutely. Let me check.
So just a short clip there, but hopefully we see some big differences here. We see James being actively engaged in the task, using the hotspots appropriately to communicate, standing in proximity to who he's talking to, like we said. You know, I think the funnest thing is just to see him, like we said, when we describe these individuals as more passive, and now he's sort of like running around the library and holding it and using it, which was just really cool. A funny story quickly is about, these were just some popular books at the time. And I don't know if you saw, but there was a book and it's a hairless cat on there. And he's looking at that cat and he's looking at me. He's looking at the cat like, what the heck is this? But that always made me laugh. Another question that I frequently get that I'll just take a time to talk about right now that we saw with James was, how do we fade this intervention? So right now we see James kind of looking, and if you might have seen, like the video was playing and he's doing the books. What was cool about James is without any teaching, he faded it himself. For videos that he did not need to watch, that he didn't need to do, he would just press the play or scroll to the next video, and he would be over there doing the task while it was playing. He faded it himself. He didn't need to stare at it. I have other participants who watch those videos closely for much longer before they're able to go and complete it independently. So there are multiple ways to fade this with the technology, which I'll kind of talk about the commercially available apps at the end, but you can delete video hotspots. You can just leave the ones for communication that are there. You can move them to the end if you're thinking, okay, like maybe they start to regress, they go away for Christmas break, and now we need them again. There are many opportunities. You can leave them in and the individual can learn to skip them, whatever it is. But there are a lot of really easy ways to fade out the intervention and fade out the video models. And that is the goal, right? That we want them to successfully, they don't need to stare at every single task, but they're actually quickly acquiring the skill very efficiently with the video models. Okay, we are moving on to our last and final study here. that I lovingly refer to as backpacks. So again, we're working through this research line. We started with Lena. It was an A/B pilot study. We amped up the ante a little bit with James, a multiple baseline across behaviors. And now we want to scale it up even more and say, can we see the same results with more participants and a more complex task with more communication opportunities? So we were brought in to work with, again, another local school district who had a collaboration with the local YMCA and food bank. So in this school district, a high percentage of individuals qualified for free or reduced lunches. And for those individuals who qualified for that program, the school partnered with the YMCA and the food bank to send backpacks filled with food home every weekend. Breakfast, dinner, snack items. So the kids would pick up their backpack on Friday, they would have food for the weekend and drop it off sometime next week. The staff would pack almost 150 backpacks every week. So again, we're working at a school with not a lot of resources. We don't have transportation to get us to a job site. We're kind of brainstorming of what meaningful activities can happen in a school setting. So sometimes you have to get a little bit creative with what you have. It might not always look like the job at Dairy Queen, but you can still work on skills that are going to support future employment, independence, and communication. So when we heard about this task, we said, yeah, that's this. Staff were staying after school every week to do that. And we said, no. We are going to have our kids do that. And we're going to take over this task. They're going to go to work 2 days a week. And we're going to get all of these backpacks packed by Friday. Research question, what's the effective of VideoVSD app on percent of steps completed during a vocational activity for 4 adolescents with minimal verbal speech? We have a multiple baseline across participants. Again, everything's the same. We're using the VideoVSD application. Our dependent variables, percent of steps completed independently, and baseline, we have no tablet or prompting, and an intervention, we have the VideoVSD app with the instruction that we've talked about previously. We have 4 participants, Ivan, Jerry, Keith, and Martin. We have 2 participants with autism and 2 participants with Down syndrome. Ivan, who we'll see some videos of, would have some 2-to-word phrases described, many scripted words and phrases. Everyone else is described as having very few words. Martin down at the bottom, lots of speech, just very, very unintelligible, especially to new partners. So all the individuals here, we see a range of diagnoses and ages, everybody presenting very similarly in terms of communication. I'm just going to skip this, just some operating the app, press the play button, watch the video, perform the step, repeat. And this was the task analysis for packing backpacks. So we see this is much larger than our 11 steps for putting books away, because this was a pretty complex task that just had a lot of steps. And again, a shared environment. Stuff was kept in a locked storage room. But what's really fun is that lots of opportunities for communication. So we have 25 steps total, a mix of the participation acts and communication acts. And of the 25 steps, 10 are communication. So we were able to really kind of explore and expand upon the communication. You'll see in black here a long sort of dialogue with the secretary. How are you doing today? I'm here to fill the backpacks. Can you let me in the storage room? We were not allowed to have that key, I'll tell you that much. Supervising, can you check my work? I'm finished. I close the storage room door. It locks automatically. Bye, have a good day are some of the steps there. And then some of what they had to do was pick up the backpacks, bring the backpacks to the cafeteria, set up the whole assembly line, follow the menu, fill the backpacks, put them in the completed bin, bring them back to the storage room. So it's a big task, but really cool for us to see. You'll see the success in a little. So in baseline, similar to what we've seen previously, we have really low levels of independent participation. This is for 2 of our participants. And I'm going to show you a short clip here of Ivan in baseline. Ivan has autism, 16 years old, minimal verbal speech, kind of similar profiles. You'll see him. This is in baseline before he has access to the intervention.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Big loud.
So again, I love that kid so much. just kind of there with me. Again, this is in baseline. And this, we call it, kind of followed the same procedures, that if he didn't implement the step within 5 seconds, I would do it. And then he had an opportunity to do the next step. So we're going to get into the intervention video here, but I just want to explain a little bit about what you're going to see. So in the point of view model that you saw with Lena, thinking back to that video, you saw a video and then a hotspot appeared and she hit it. We've talked a little bit about with James how we worked on, teaching what is a true communication turn. What is that reciprocal communication? Is it a true turn if there's no back and forth with the communication partner? And so with this, we worked on what they see in the video model is exactly what they're going to do. So I should have a clip here of that point of view. That would be a good idea. So in their iPad that they're holding, they actually see somebody with an iPad that has a hotspot come up. The video model activates the hotspot, hears it, and then says it. And then they activate the hotspot, hear it, and then say it. So when you see it in the video clip, it sounds a little bit weird, like, hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? But that's because they are actually seeing exactly what they're supposed to do. So they watch the video model, look at it, hit it, and then they head up, step towards the person, are able to repeat the message, hit the hotspot, and then say it. And what was cool about this, again, you can see you can adapt this and personalize it to the needs of the individuals that you're working with, but you have the opportunity to make that as specific or not specific as needed for your clientele. So here is Ivan in intervention.
I'm good. How are you? That's good. Yes, I can. Made it.
I'm going to stop it there. You can see a little bit of the setup, the assembly line, the menu. And, I think what's so cool to see, and it's so hard to describe, you can't ever really, it's very difficult to measure and research, but just is the change in the affect in the individuals from baseline to intervention, and just the confidence that we saw, an increase in self-esteem. So Ivan was working on getting a diagnosis, or and during this process had a diagnosis of anxiety. And we saw that a lot, and that really kind of hindered his participation. You can see some behaviors that might be telling of that even during the intervention, but it was just so cool to see that he had this support that was really to help him combat some of those anxiety issues as well. And then again, we see him actively participating, really proud of himself, and just happy to be completing this program, which was really exciting for us all to see. His scores there, again, similar. We saw immediate jumps up, and that happened across all 4 participants. So again, really excited about this research, though it's minimal for number of participants that we have done this experimental research on. We're seeing similar results across the board, across skills, across complexity, which is really exciting. Here are just a few pictures of them, the assembly line, what everything kind of looked like. And then I'm going to share quick about social validity. I know I'm getting close on time here. So if someone asked you about this intervention, what would you say? This is for backpacks. They said, I think it's very powerful to see them go from where they started, and then in a matter of a couple of months to be able to work independently. That was incredible. I thought it was great that other people got to see how well they could do. They asked questions and wanted to know what was going on. The bar got so high for them. It exceeded our expectations. I didn't know that the kids would be able to completely do it independently by the end. This was an area where I've kind of alluded to this. There were some low expectations. There were some attitudinal barriers of what this population could do. You can see it in the quotes, that people were amazed. These kids are stuck in their classroom all day, and now we have them out and about and doing work. And actually, when we proposed this to the team, they said, hey, if they can just pack 2 backpacks, even if they do 2 backpacks a week, that would be awesome. And I was like, heck no. These boys were packing all 150 backpacks every single week. When our part ended, they continue it now. So it's just so cool to see, like they said, it exceeded our expectations. So we hope that with interventions like this, where we're able to see the independent participation and communication, it's also changing mindsets and helping raise the bar for this population. Lastly, that those kids were able to feel success. I think they felt like they were a productive adult within this building, and I think it built a lot of self-esteem within those kids, which I would agree. I think what was also really cool about the backpack study in particularly is that this is a population that is historically characteristically on the receiving end of services, right? But this was an opportunity for them to give back. This was a volunteer activity for them where they were able to give back to their school, and I just think that's really cool. So we saw, participants able to develop many skills within one activity, a lot of skills we need as we enter into adulthood and into the workforce. We were able to use VideoVSDs to infuse the video prompting and communication, which increased participation. We saw increased confidence and independence, decreased reliance on prompting and staff. When we're thinking about services, funding, all of that for adults with disabilities, it's important for us to be considering how we can decrease the need for additional staff members in order to increase independence. So yeah, super exciting. And I'll just quickly go to some commercially available apps. I'm not funded by any of these people. I use GoVisual the most. Snapseed also supports this technology. GoVisual by Attainment, I think the app is like $49.99. And I'll just say what's really cool is that it can be used. I've used this for social skills. You can use this for life skills. You can have different users within the app to use it across clients. You can share videos from yours to home if they want to transfer and use the skill. So for that price, I just think it's a really versatile tool that can be really beneficial for this population. So with that being said, that is the end of my presentation. We might have a couple minutes if anybody has any questions.
I'll just add that Seen and Heard Pro by Therapy Box now also has VideoVSDs as an option. They have a 30-day free trial. And then you can either purchase it lifetime or a subscription. So just depending on funding, it's more than like GoVisual, but it does have the trial and has some additional features involved. And they partnered with Penn State as well to develop it. But
awesome.
Like you said, no financial connections at all, but just that's a new one that's just come out in the last little bit.
Awesome. Very cool. And GoVisual too has a light version that you can get for free and then pilot it a little bit. Awesome. Thank you. Good to know. Any other questions or comments? All right, then.
No, I was just going to say this is, thank you so much for joining us and presenting this as such important information for all of us. I really love how you stressed and embedded all the communication pieces in that, because I feel like that's where sometimes it gets lost. We're so focused on the person learning like what to do, and we don't think about that they need to be interacting with people on the job as well during all these skills. So yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.